Hey, it's Ubu, and today we're going to discuss the Silent Hill 2 remake combat trailer that was just shown at the State of Play this week. And as I discuss this, I may bring up things that have to do with the original game, so there are spoilers for the game. If you don't want anything spoiled, if you haven't played the original game, then you might not like this video. But I wanted to basically clarify my point of view and my concerns and even the positives that I have for the trailer and just the remake as a general concept. So I'm going to read some things real quick that I wrote down just to clarify my stance and sort of my purpose that I have for this video. And the purpose of this video is to dissect the new trailer and point out what works and what could use improvement with a balanced approach. I want to have a conversation about what I like while also sharing the reasonable concerns I have, which I believe are reasonable. I'm not making this video to overly nitpick or to argue with anyone or to make like a big fuss out of things. This is just to have a discussion. Sort of my approach to this is, and one things that I truly believe is that if you really care about something, especially if you've played the original game or any sort of game that's been remade or changed or altered in some sort of new modern take on it, I think you should critique it if you care about it. While the original game exists and that you can play it in some manner of speaking, either on My Abandonware or go spend however many amounts of dollars on eBay or whatever retro game store you have nearby. I've seen copies of Silent Hill 2 in person at stores for $200, $100, but then you still have to buy a PS2 that's a working condition, all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of loops to jump through to play the original game. So even though the original game still exists in some manner of speaking, that shouldn't make, in my opinion, the remake just completely immune to criticism. And another thing is, I really do want this game to succeed. So that's another big point of my discussion here. In a lot of games that I talk about, I want them to succeed. This isn't a doomer like, oh, it's just going to be the worst thing ever. However, I hope I'm able to get across my points today in a fashion that people can understand and even discuss with me in the comments and share their opinions on this as well and have a conversation about it. So, and also I want to describe my philosophy with my channel. If you're not familiar with me, my channel philosophy is basically honesty. Very simply put, I want to share basically constructive criticism on a lot of the games that I play with the hopes that it will be beneficial either to the developers or even inform people of the games that I'm playing, of what you can expect or whatnot. And I want to clarify that I don't want people to take my opinions or critiques as the be-all end-all for a game. And if you disagree with any of my points, I actually encourage you to share your thoughts, not just with me, but especially with the developers and the people who spend all the time making these games, either indie developers or even, companies like Blooper Team. Like, don't watch videos like mine and then just go, well, that's their opinion, so that's the way the game is, or that's the only sort of avenue of discourse that there is to have about the game. Really open your mind up to a lot of these videos like mine and really try to come up with your own opinion, especially, and then see how it reflects to people like me that, make videos on them and whatnot. Just because I make videos doesn't mean my opinions are the opinion to go by. I just want to make that clear. And we're going to go ahead in a minute and go through the trailer. I forgot to mention that earlier on. And we're going to kind of dissect the trailer as we go. And then I'm going to break it down a little bit more, frame by frame in some scenarios. And then we'll discuss more about, sort of my positives and concerns with the trailer and just my general thoughts on the remake later down the road. So I wrote down here, I believe the trailer is, this is sort of a theory of mine. I believe this trailer and what I've seen recently on Twitter today, there's some reports of this trailer actually being an early build from early 2023. And that's coming from Dusk Golem. If you're even into all that sort of like insider information, I don't necessarily take it, I take it all with a grain of salt, because I don't really, even if they show screenshots and stuff, I don't know the validity of it to like a point. So my theory with this trailer, after watching it several times, I was thinking that it's more of a showcase or a test build for combat. And I wrote this down before I even heard about the early build stuff, apparently from last year. And I don't believe this trailer is meant to reflect the the amount of combat you have to take part in. Like, I think it's rather that if you were to fight enemies, this is what you would expect, and I'll expand upon this as I go. However, the combat clearly needs some work in a lot of ways, and a lot of people are saying it's reflecting the RE remakes that we've been getting, like RE2 Remake especially. You could say even RE4, but from what I saw in the trailer, it's a little bit more akin to RE2 for some reason, at least in my opinion. Or some people would even go to say that it looks like a fan-made project, and I think that's a bit harsh in my opinion. While it looks rough, and like I said, we'll continue to watch the trailer in a moment, and I'll expand upon that. But I think the problem with even comparing it to a Resident Evil remake is the fact that the game decided to go with an over-the-shoulder sort of perspective, which I thought most people expected from the original trailer. And now this trailer, people were like really surprised that it was over the shoulder. Like, they never advertised or shown in the original trailer that it would be this sort of fixed camera thing, or like, you know, far back kind of camera thing like it was in the original game. Which I have played the original game several times, but I do have a playthrough on my channel if you want to go watch it. Anyways, I think just because it's over the shoulder with guns and monsters doesn't automatically mean they're copying Resident Evil 2, in my opinion, or any Resident Evil remake. We've had over-the-shoulder games since the Xbox 360 era. Gears of War was over-the-shoulder. I mean, the list goes on. Like, even I think technically Red Dead Redemption 2 is like that, and correct me if I'm wrong. There is a huge list of over-the-shoulder games out there nowadays. So I think because we're so familiar with that sort of formula of the camera and how it sort of looks in the environment around you, I think it's easy to compare it to, like, oh, they're copying Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil remakes. I just don't think that is exactly their intention, to copy Resident Evil. That's just my opinion. Now, you could say they think, well, the over-the-shoulder thing looks really good in the Resident Evil remakes, so we'll try to do that. I don't think that necessarily means they're trying to 100% copy Resident Evil remakes, because there's a ton of over-the-shoulder games out there. So I just wanted to clarify my point on that, because I think it's a bit of a cop-out just to be like, they're copying them. That's just my opinion. Anyways, I think we'll go ahead and watch the trailer, and then I'll dissect it, and then I'll get back to some of my points that I have written down here, and then we'll continue. So I'm watching this on the official Silent Hill YouTube channel. Okay, for some reason this video is not playing very well, but anyways. So just basically in the opening here, you can see James reaching towards this chair with the TV in front of him with the static. And this is, I think most of this trailer takes place in the Woodside Apartments. And this is a part of the game where in the original game, you see this bloodied corpse in a chair. And I think this is interesting that they're including this in the trailer, because it's one of those weird moments in the game where you just are kind of like, what the hell's going on? And technically, in the original game, I believe it's the actual model of James sitting in the chair. But in the trailer here, as it goes, you'll see that it's actually, I believe I can track here. Sorry, I'm not very good at this. I'll try to pause it as best I can here. Well, for a second there, you see that his face is covered in a bloody rag. And people are like, well, they're hiding it. You know, why would they do that? I think my assumption here is that he's going to approach the chair and then maybe pull that rag off of his face. That could happen, because I feel like just too much, like, there's not enough speculation with this trailer. Like, a lot of people are just like, oh, they covered his face, what the hell? I'm just saying, I think there's more to that than we'll see in the trailer here. And also there's this odd sort of shadow box of moths, which I think is kind of cool. This one looks kind of like a death head moth that's got like the skull on it. I don't really remember this in the original game. Maybe it's in the room with the moths, that you stick your hand in the hole in the wall. Or maybe it's like a new puzzle they added. Maybe just there's an inspection, more environmental things that you can interact with and inspect. Maybe something of that nature. That'd be kind of cool. And then here you'll see him putting the big can of juice in the trash chute that you have to use to knock out some stuff in the trash chute to get one of the coins for the coin puzzle. That's cool to see that. the safe puzzle, which you do pretty early on in the Woodside Apartments. Pretty simple. You just get a code and you open a safe and it has like a shitload of ammo or something in it. Maybe they'll change that. I'm not sure how the ammo economy is going to work in the remake. Maybe they'll have something more unique or different in this safe for us to discover. That'd be interesting. And then the dead guy in the refrigerator. In the original game, you can't really see it in this much detail. You approach a refrigerator that's kind of off kilter with the door open, and then when you walk up and inspect it, it says something about a body being in there, and you can kind of see it if you move around some, but not in like this much detail where you can like full blown see a corpse like being smashed into a refrigerator. I'm not sure who he is necessarily or anything like that, so I think it's cool that they're just like flat out showing it. It's a bit odd. I think it's maybe more interesting and effective in the original because you're just kind of like can't really see what James is describing to you. So you can kind of imagine it a little bit, but this is just like flat out showing you. It's a bit odd. And then of course this part when he's looking over, it's the part where you jump through the windows to the other apartment. This is the time puzzle in the original where you have the hours, minutes, seconds related to people's names. And then you kind of have to figure out what time you need to put it on. And then you can slide the clock out of the way. So we are seeing consistency with the puzzles that are in the original game. So there's that, which I like. So this outside shot, I don't know if this fog in this scene is actually in the game. It's almost like they used and it could be, for some reason it gives off the impression that it's there for effect. It's like a transition they used in the trailer. Because the way it dissipates is kind of odd looking. But this is the Woodside Apartments entrance, which looks very different than the original game. The original game, you kind of go through some chain link fences. And it's like sort of like a weird double entrance with like trash and all kinds of shit laying everywhere. Pardon my French. This is just like a flat out open entrance with like a stoop and American flag and all this. It looks really cool. I think the environment out here looks really interesting. I like the way it looks. Personally, I think the fog is a little odd, and like I said, I don't know if it's like added in post for transitional purposes. No, I don't know why this is having so much trouble playing. Okay, here we go. We're walking in. Yeah, the way he kind of walks is a little weird there, and then his head just kind of moves. I'm not really sure about that. Yeah, this part right here, this looks more akin to the original game. You have this long stretch of a building front, and right in front of him on the left over here kind of looks like the trash chute. Maybe that's where it is. This fog looks okay. It looks rather dynamic, but it's almost like the fog is very high up towards the top of the buildings, out of frame, and kind of low, so that way it leaves sort of a field of view of the environment around you, because the fog in the original game is very thick, like very, very, very thick. So as you get closer to objects and locations, it kind of have this bubble around you of field of view around you. Like it's almost like fog of war in old like RTS games or whatever. I guess that's a way to describe it. You really only see what's in a certain vicinity around you. And also, you know, there's like different variations of the fog in the enhanced edition of the original game where it's like complex or it's very simple. So there's a lot of different dynamic ways it interacts and whatnot. So seeing the fog here looks pretty decent, I would say. We're going to play some more. And okay, so he's like walking in. I assume this is the very beginning of the Woodside apartment. So he walks in because right up here looks sort of like a welcome sort of center. There's like a bulletin board, and behind the counter there almost looks like little like deposit boxes or mail boxes. Like, oh, do I have any mail? And then, you know, the clerk hands you mail or maybe something of that nature. Because that's basically in the original. When you walk in the Woodside apartments, it's a very different structure. Like, you walk in and there's like a staircase and there's like a doorway this way and there's a doorway past the staircase, if I'm remembering correctly. But there are like deposit like mailboxes on the wall. This is more designed, I guess, traditional sort of hotel kind of design where, you know, you walk straight into like an entrance lobby area rather than some kind of odd staircase kind of place. I don't know. It's a different approach for sure. And I could be wrong. This could be a different building altogether. I'm not sure. So, okay, so he just kind of slings the door open real quick, which I thought the animation was kind of weird, where he just kind of just bam, just like slaps the door handle and it just flies open. This right here looks really cool. I like the depth here. You can see the light coming off of his chest here, where he keeps his flashlight. You can see it kind of coming off the wall here. And there's almost like moonlight or something coming through the windows down the hall. Okay. Let me back it up. I see people, they must have a better way to get this trailer and stuff to work. Maybe, I don't know. Anyways. He's walking down the hall. This looks like the coin puzzle. Yeah, 3 bright coins in the 5 holes B. First sits the maiden underneath the tree. So they've actually redone the riddle. Maybe it changes with difficulty. The wind from behind the maiden doth blow. A beautiful flower alone has to grow. And here comes the man, so sleek and so fine. In the pale moonlight, his eyes doth shine. Yeah, so they changed the riddle on this. It's a little bit more straightforward. The riddle in the original game is so long and just like confusing, which I think is done on purpose, especially if you play on a hard riddle difficulty, which I did recently in my last playthrough of it. And I like the design of the coin box, though. It has like an engraving on it, and it's got almost like a Yggdrasil, like tree of the world tree sort of design on the front of it, with like the sun and the moon. I think that's kind of a cool looking design. It's different. It looks rather large, because I think a lot of the problems with these puzzles, in my opinion, in the original game is like, let's say you put a coin in, you put all your coins in, and it's wrong. So then you have to like individually take them out, and then you have to go back in your inventory one by one. Every time you put a coin in, you have to go back in your inventory, select it, and then put it in. Go back in your inventory, select it, and put it in. I hope they kind of streamline how you get items out of your inventory for puzzle use, in my opinion, at least for this puzzle especially, because doing it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, I think is a very small thing that can be improved. This puzzle looked odd to me. This is clearly a puzzle with hands on the front of this like wardrobe, armoire looking thing. And I don't know if it's a change to the puzzle. I thought that was in the hospital, though. Maybe it's a new puzzle. Because there's a hospital, I think there's a puzzle in the hospital where there's like a hand coming out of a door, and it's got this crazy painting on it, where you have to get these rings to like open this door. And I assumed at first glance that's kind of what this was. Looks like you have to put like a ball in their hand, and then it opens and unlocks. Maybe this is just a completely new puzzle, now that I think about it. Okay, this is him stepping through to the other apartment. Okay, now we're getting into the combat. And this looks like right when you pick up the flashlight, I assume. You pick up the flashlight, and then when it comes on, there's a mannequin. So as you can look at the mannequin, and you can look at better images of this, I'm sure, online. But it's got like cloth wrapping on it, and like stockings on it. And I think what I like about some of the enemy design in the trailer is that they've given them some variety in their appearance. So they look sort of like different beings, rather than just basically being carbon copies of each other, which I think is a good thing to a degree. It gives the game some dynamic appeal to it visually. So I think that's pretty cool. So the way he swings his melee weapon is decent looking, I would say. He's like, really swinging at him. I think maybe the impact sounds could be adjusted just a little bit, and maybe seeing the connection of the melee weapon to the enemy, maybe connect a little better, just like, instead of just kind of like whack, 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 because the combat in the original game, which I'm going to get into, it's very one-dimensional. You just kind of whack, whack. You just kind of hit them, and then they fall over, and you step on them, and then you move on. So seeing him just kind of like have this almost like dynamic way of swinging is pretty cool, I would say. I think the impact, the way it connects to the enemy, and then sort of the way the enemy reacts to it physically, maybe could be polished up a little bit. I think that would be cool. Like, and I don't know if they're gonna have like directional, where like you can swing from above or swing from the side. I think maybe they're gonna be more like a series of melee animations that sort of just cycle as you swing your melee weapon, like a little bit higher, a little bit lower, kind of thing, rather than it being like up or down or something really weird and complicated for no reason. So yeah, I kind of like the way he swings his weapon. So it almost looks like there's a bit of a wind up in one of those. He winds up, wham, and then a quick one right after that. And that, I don't know if that's just animation cycles or if you can kind of charge an attack to get like a first good hit on them and then do some quick hits after. I think having a charge attack might be okay. Like if there's something coming and you're cornered, you charge up so you're ready, so you can get like a real good hard hit on them and maybe stun lock them a little bit and just run away. I think that'd be kind of cool. At least that's the way it looks to me. And I don't mean to overthink this, but I'm really trying to dissect this. But first, yeah. I want to look at that again. Sorry about this trailer and everything not working very well and looking very well, but I'm trying to do my best here. Yeah, right there. Whoa, he just kind of... Okay, here are the lying figures, and this is a part I do not like, personally. You can kind of get a good look at this melee weapon, though. Got some nails sticking out of it. Pretty brutal looking. Lying figures are a bit odd looking, in my opinion. That's a pretty good frame. They don't look too bad. You can still get the, pronounced, head sort of shape and their arms. They basically, I believe the lying figures are supposed to be sort of the representation of the confinement that James and Mary kind of felt, like Mary being basically bedridden, constantly being confined in a space. You're kind of just claustrophobic and uncomfortable. There's probably a little bit more to it than that, but that's just simply put. I think they look okay. They look a little bit different than each other. It's hard to tell with the way I'm doing things, but yeah, I kind of like the design to a degree. Now, what I don't like about this part, so he's smacking him. Yeah, this part right here, and a lot of people have been like, "Man, this is an odd part." So, personally, I don't really like QTEs, as you would call them, quick time events. This is a very simplistic quick time event. It's not like you have to hit X, A, or, X, circle, square, triangle, like in a certain order to, like, get them off of you. For one, it's a figure that has no arms, so they cannot grab you. So it's a bit odd that he would, like, oh, like you're, like, fighting somebody without arms. It's really weird to then throw a quick time event on the screen. And I'll clarify, I know in the original game that there are enemies that grab you, and you have to, like, you could press buttons. There's no prompts on the screen, just like a lot of older games. When something grabs you, the natural reaction is to hit buttons on the controller. We've all done that as kids, I'm sure. But for me, I don't need to be told to mash a button in this situation. However, I think the whole interaction here with a lying figure just doesn't make sense to me, personally. I think it would make a lot more sense if that, let's say you get near a lying figure and it sprays you, right? They spit this, like, acid, gross shit all over you. That then it would, like, obscure the cameras, because you can see on the screen here, there's a lot of splatter and stuff all over the screen, which I don't really like either. It's not a terrible addition, given the perspective that they're trying to give us, but I think it would make sense if they get, like, a really good direct hit on you, that it would kind of blind you. So you have to he has to wipe his face off. So I would much rather the interaction be that if you let them spray you, it puts you in a position to where they can walk up and maybe, like, hit you with their head or something like that, rather than being locked in some kind of weird, tug of war with them. I think mechanically it would make sense to be like, oh, I'm sprayed, can't really see, so your character, is walking around, and he's slowed because he's disoriented. So make it more of like a disorient effect rather than like, oh no, I'm struggling with you. I'm going to push you away. That's just my opinion. I think it would work better and make more sense that way. Like, I don't really know how to describe that. I don't like having a game just all of a sudden being like, press X on your PlayStation controller. I think it just completely breaks immersion. Like, we already know we're playing a video game, but at the same time, when you're really engrossed in it, me personally, seeing the controller buttons pop up on the screen is like really corny. It's really corny, and I think it's kind of out of place. It's a small thing. I just think there's ways to make this interaction make a lot more sense to the tone of the game. Because this game is like all about tone. Yeah, so it's almost like... Hold on, let me go back a little bit further. It's almost like he got too close. And maybe he failed the event and then it spit on him. Okay, here we go. So we see James here going up some stairs. Like a fire escape of some kind. Which I'm not really sure where that would be. There's not very many... I don't think there's any fire escapes in the original game like this. Maybe it's a different way to transition from one level to another. Maybe they changed some of the routing of like taking all of those extra staircases out from the original and making maybe different paths to approach, you know, the next objective. I'm not really sure. Someone said something like, oh, it might be where he's going to fight Mary or whatever, or Maria or whatever at the end of the game. I don't think they would show that part at the end, in the middle of this trailer. That doesn't make sense to me. Bloody bathtub. And then we get writing on this wall for some reason. Oh boy. That says, reap what you sow. And I saw a lot of people discussing this, being like, wow, that's really on the nose. Like, whoa, why would they do that? I think the wording, reap what you sow, is kind of odd. I don't mind, because here's the thing. In the original game, there are writings on walls in a lot of places. Someone was posting the one that says, like, there's a staircase, I think it's in the apartments, where on the wall it says to hell, and it's like pointing to a door. For some reason, I know it's in the game, I guess, from that screenshot. I don't remember ever seeing that when I played the game. The game is so damn dark, I just didn't notice it. So I thought that was interesting. There are places you come across in the game as well that'll say, like, whatever it is, like in the door of waking darkness, nightmares, whatever. There's like a bunch of weird cryptic writings on the walls in a lot of places. There's one that just straight up says, like, oh, you can't save Mary and you're going to go to hell. So, and there's the one where it's like, there used to be a hole here and now it's gone. I like those odd, strange, cryptic writings. And whether you think they're maybe on the nose or not, especially the one saying like, well, Mary's gone and you're going to hell kind of thing. But I think what makes the writing on the walls interesting in the original game, especially, it has a lot to do with the time period the game came out in and how old the game is. That's something I think back then was very fitting to the game because, you know, it's a 23-something-year-old, 22, 23-year-old horror game. So I think playing it back then and the way it is in the grand scheme of gaming back then was very fitting to the tone and the atmosphere and the environment. I think with how many horror games we have now, seeing something like this written on the wall, reap what you sow, I think is why it kind of set off some alarms in people's heads. It's because we play a lot of horror games nowadays that do this very on the nose, generic sort of like, oh, you shouldn't have done that kind of thing, and they plaster it over the walls and put it in notes. Or I think maybe that's why people were concerned with this. I don't think it's that big a deal, honestly. I think it's just odd wording. I just don't think it needs to be there. I don't think it's a big deal, but at the same time, I find it rather unnecessary. Another thing about James is they've definitely changed, and if this is true that this is an old build from 2023, it has his appearance a bit different than what we expected. His hair is very, very blonde. Forgot to mention that. They need to muddy that up a little bit. His hair is a light colored in the original game, but it's not as like shiny and as pronounced as this is. But you know, this is Unreal Engine 5 and everything, so let's continue. Got some shooting. Got another quick time event. Yeah, here we go. And I think that music, it's a cover of one of the original songs. A lot of people were also talking about, well, the rock music. Like, dude, you need to go listen to the Silent Hill 2 soundtracks, because one of them is like the entire soundtrack is like, it's got a woman singing, so it has vocals, and it's like weird 2000s, like progressive rock kind of stuff. It's really cool. It's actually really good. But I believe that song I was playing is like a cover of a song. So it showed that lying figure here. I'm sorry, I'm trying. It almost looks like it has glass or some sort of shrapnel sticking out of it. And it's very, very bloody. That's also a different variation, I think, that I think is a cool addition. I like the variations. The pistol sounds are terrible. I'm just going to say that. There's another mannequin. It has a little bit different sort of wrappings on it and doesn't necessarily have, maybe it has pantyhose on or something. It's a little bit different colored legs up here. Almost got like wrappings around the feet. You can see the environment around here looks pretty decent. It's got some wallpaper and just sheets and grime and stuff and trash everywhere. Very quick time event. So this is him stepping over. That's, I believe, the valve that was just shown is the puzzle where you have to figure out which hanging body is innocent. Or it may be one of the... I think that might be the only valve. I don't know. I think that's cool to see, though. Okay, let's see if we can pause this. Okay, so yeah, here's James. And I believe... excuse me. So he's holding the knife that we see with from Angela in the original game. And I think this thing behind him is the big mirror on the wall. So this must be after we meet Angela Orozco in the game. So yeah, you can see his face is very toned down, and his laugh lines and just the overall sort of look that he's giving off is very controlled. It's very calm. And I like that. The first trailer, he is very, it's a CG mostly trailer, but he's got extreme facial features, you know, all sad and crazy looking with weird, he almost has real dark hair as well. You can see his hair here is very blonde. I actually don't think it looks that bad. I think it might need to tone down a little bit on its like glossiness, but I think his shirt and his jacket and everything looks pretty good too. I like the way this looks. This might be more of a cutscene than anything, but I like the way it looks. Yeah, so we'll continue. So it showed him getting the pistol from the shopping cart, as you do in the game, when in a room that's full of bullet holes and stuff everywhere. Let me jump back a little bit, see if this will stop hiccuping so much. I think I'm just going to kind of let it play now. So some nurses, shaking heads, rifle, swinging the pipe around, more mannequins. Oof. And then you'll see him open the door and there's Pyramid Head that looks like he's holding like a body or something. So you see some of the nurses here, they have some varying appearances to them. Some are a little bit more bloody, some are a little bit, I don't know, I guess they kind of look the same to a degree, but they look slightly different. And some people are complaining about this green blood here. I'm not sure if they went with the idea that different enemies have different colored blood, or if it's a feature that you can turn on or off. I know in the original games, I believe they had edited versions for Japan because how they are with censorship on blood and gore and whatnot. So they made the blood green. So, you know, in the US, we don't really have stuff, we don't really have a problem with that. So, we have different versions of the game. I'm not sure though. My theory is that maybe it's either a feature or that different enemies have different colored blood. I'm not really sure why they would do that necessarily, but you also see a lot of debris come off of her when she's shot. All this white debris or flesh, maybe. That's kind of interesting. And you can see the bubblehead sort of appearance here, and she has the red square over her mouth. I think that's what that is. You can see this nurse definitely looks different. She has like shards in her, kind of like that lying figure did earlier. She has a knife. She has this odd black sort of ooze on her, more of like a dingy sort of top. Than it doesn't look button up like, you know, the nurse gowns are usually. This looks like kind of shower room of some kind or something. Or maybe these are lights where beds would be up against these walls. These retaining walls. Whatever you want to call them. Not really sure. This is an odd looking room, honestly. Some ammo sitting over there on the bench. Some kind of item. She's rearing back to swing. I think that's cool. Shotgun looks okay. See how blonde his hair is here? Oof. Yeah, that needs to be toned down, I think, just a little bit. Yeah, I should have planned this trailer thing a little better. Yeah, the shotgun sound is okay, but that pistol sound effect is awful. It sounds like it's silenced or suppressed. Pew, pew. I want like a gritty, loud, realistic pistol sound. Like bang, bang, bang. Like I want something that echoes in the halls when you shoot it. Very immersive. I want it to sound like you're legit using a handgun. I want it to really give off that impression that you're doing damage, you know, you're like fighting, rather than just this weird pea shooter sound. I don't know what that is. This is James running through some big doors. Hunting rifle seems okay. More melee swings. That stomp sound effect sounds terrible. Yeah, the shotgun sound needs some work. This is interesting here, too. This is clearly, I think, the room where you fight Pyramid Head the first time, which in the original game is a very small room with a staircase that's flooded. So there's a lot of structure here when you walk in, like crates of some kind. I'm not really sure what these are. Maybe it was being used as like a storage room or something. And then he's holding some bodies. He's, you know, doing creepy, weird stuff to the lying figures and mannequins and stuff or whatever, or the mannequins in the original game. So I'm not sure what they're going to really show him doing to these enemies anymore. Pyramid Head, there's a couple scenes where he's basically violating them or abusing them physically, and it's kind of concerning and kind of strange looking. It makes you wonder, like, what the hell is that? What is he doing? I'm not sure how they're going to convey that in this game. Yeah, there you go. That's pretty much the trailer. I could have done that a little bit better, I think, but now that we're through it, we'll just move on. As of course you can see here, in development for the PlayStation 5 and PC. So a lot of people were disappointed that we're not getting a release date yet from this trailer. Honestly, I didn't really expect one. And the way this trailer, if this is an old build trailer, it makes, in my opinion, no sense of why you would show it in this state, because then it's gotten everybody up into a frenzy, freaking out about the game and blah, 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 blah. So I don't know if it was Bloober's idea, because Konami is the one pushing this game. So Konami must not have really thought this through, in my opinion. That's pretty much it for my breakdown of the trailer. I think go over some more points of mine real quick, and then we'll wrap things up. So one thing I didn't really talk about is in the original game, combat is not the point, is things that a lot of people say. And I absolutely believe that even though the Silent Hill 2 technically has combat, that it has very little to do with the game's identity as a whole. Even though a lot of people will say and defend that oh, it's known for its janky combat. Like it's partly why people remember Silent Hill 2. One part is the janky combat. It's apparently something a lot of people associate with the game, which I think is fair. But like, it's really not a core aspect of the game. Like, yes, you can hit enemies with a pipe or a piece of wood or a great knife or whatever, or you can shoot them and you stomp on them. They're more or less, if they're in your way, or if you're trying to sort of get one of the certain endings. So I think the story, the characters, and the overwhelming dread the game gives off is expanded through exploring the town, solving puzzles, and progressing. While the monsters clearly play a role in that experience, I believe fighting them is simplistic on purpose and not a key factor. Aside from the point that you, based on how many you kill or don't kill, or how much damage you take from them or don't take from them, can affect one of the 5 endings, however many endings in the original game. I don't know specifically how many they affect, but that is one of the main reasons they exist. Of course, with like health items and things of that nature as well, also affect certain endings in the original game. So I think even with my concerns of the combat looking a bit out of place in a lot of ways, I do like some of the melee, like I said, but it's seriously not that big a deal. And the fact that they've dubbed it the combat trailer is what's got everyone so worked up. But just like, think to yourself, if you're playing this game like the original game, how much combat do you really expect to take part in? And if that's something that you like to do in the original game, then you're welcome to do it. You can still beat on enemies and shoot them and whatnot. I don't know how the ammo economy is going to be, but like people like me, when I did my last playthrough, I think I killed like 62 enemies with melee, and I do not remember doing that. Like, but it happens. You just go through the game and you get the ones out of your way that you need out of your way, or you just avoid the rest, or avoid as many as you can. It's an option, more or less. I think the combat trailer threw people off because they expect that the trailer reflects the entire game, and I don't think that's what it is. I don't think this combat trailer reflects the entire experience of the Silent Hill 2 remake. And I could be wrong, but that's my point of view on it. And we only saw a few events in the trailer that were all in the same Woodside apartments. So what, 5 or 6 instances of combat in a game that you would take normally about 6 hours to play? I don't know. I think it's blown out of proportion just a little bit. So I would just clarify a few of my points. I think the visuals of the trailer shows the exteriors and interiors of some of the levels, which I believe most of it is the Woodside apartments. And I think the environment looks rather decent. The fog and the clutter and the lighting and the color palette, I think, works together pretty well. So visually, I think it's okay. Like graphically, environmentally, looks pretty decent. It definitely can use some improvement, but it does the game a lot more justice if you watch the trailer in its entirety in like a higher resolution, 60 frames. Yeah. Anyways, the sound effects. The melee sound effects are punchy, but I think they could use some work. I think, like I said, there needs to be a little bit more connection with your hits, a little bit more reaction from the enemy when you hit them. And the pistol sound effects sound pretty bad, in my opinion. Almost as though it has a suppressor, and I think the sound effect needs to be completely replaced. The shotgun and rifle also sound a little bit off. They're not as bad as the pistol, but they should sound more unique while also giving the satisfying feel of using them, make them really stand out separate from each other. You know, pistol sounds like a pistol, shotgun sounds like a shotgun, rifle sounds like a rifle. I think they need to work on that. I think James, his appearance is altered compared to the first trailer that we've seen. And it might just be like a translation thing. Like the trailer, he's very over the top, cartoonish almost. And then the game, he's a little bit more toned down because he's like a animated like character that you play as rather than a CGI trailer. I don't know. So he has less expression and also has his hair is a little bit more blonde than I think it needs to be. I've said that a few times. His walking animation is a bit stiff in a lot of ways that we've seen. I think that needs to be worked on as well. He needs to have a little bit more of like a relaxed sort of walk. You know, maybe when there's enemies nearby, he can maybe act a little bit different. But yeah, he needs to be a little less like a robot when he's walking around, which I'm sure they'll work on. And the enemy design, the mannequins, the lying figures, and the bubblehead nurses, I think the enemy design looks decent. I like that they've added detail and give them more variety in their appearance, and the impression that you're not fighting just clones of enemies, just because the way game design used to be. Now you're fighting like separate entities, more or less. I think that's a cool addition to the game. I like that, actually. So overall, really, I don't have much else to really say about it. I think overall, the trailer really threw people off for a lot of reasons. I think a lot of the reasons are people just were so hyped. People have been overhyping things nowadays to the point of insanity. You gotta take it back a notch a little bit. Kind of put your expectations down a little bit. Don't get so unrealistic with what you expect. Like, oh, they're gonna show a trailer at the State of Play. It's gonna be the best freaking thing I've ever seen in my life. Or even if you don't even really maybe if you have really low expectations and this still bothered you, I think you need to sift through it a little bit more and try to get to the point where if this is an older build, or even if it's not, let's say this is a recent build, they clearly need to work on it, and not getting a release date, I think, is a good thing. It shows us that they obviously have a lot more time to work on this, and I hope they get as much time as they can possibly get. I don't want this being rushed out. I don't think it needs to be... Honestly, let's say this isn't an old build, and this is a recent build. Let's say late last year, early this year kind of build, within the last 3 months, let's say. I don't see this game coming out this year. And, you know, that kind of sucks if that's true, but I'd really want this game to actually succeed, even with Bloober's reputation or whatever people think about them. I think this game really its rate of success dramatically increases the more time they have to work on it, in my opinion. So I think overall, while I do have concerns with the combat and some of the sound effects and just the overall appearance of James' hair and sort of the weird writing on the wall and just sort of the flow of combat in general, I think the way it's shown is about as complex as I'd want it to ever get. I think what really would make the combat, even though it's not a big point of the game, be more palatable is that it just has very smooth animations that make a lot of sense physically, a lot of physical dynamic sort of interactions with gunshots and gunshot like impacts, like melee impacts, just the connection and interaction between you and an enemy. If all of those things are really fine-tuned to where combat doesn't seem to almost break you out of the pace of the game, then I think it will work really well. Because while I don't like the nurse like mantling over a wall, I think that's very odd. I think giving them a little bit more sort of personality as enemies isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't want them to be goofy like zombie-like things. I want them to still have this appearance, this feel as though they're a threat to you and almost they're unknown to you. Like James doesn't understand what he's seeing. So I don't want him to be able to just be like, I don't care, I'm just gonna run in and just beat the crap out of him. I want there to still be that atmosphere that reflects the strange, bizarre world and the environment around him just being so unfamiliar. I mean, technically in the original game, you could just go and beat down every enemy you come across, you get so much ammo in the original game. It's like not even funny. You can just shoot everything in sight. It's like, who cares? So I hope they maybe give more of an incentive to avoid them, or an incentive to attack them, maybe tied to the endings or achievements. I don't want it to be a core feature where you're locked into fighting enemies. Like, oh, you can't go through this environment unless you kill the enemies. I want to be able to avoid them as much as I possibly can. Still give that freedom of choice. And I think it'll be just fine. I think people seeing combat trailer just threw alarms off everywhere. I think maybe there's a bit of an overreaction. At the same time, I wouldn't dismiss everyone's criticisms of something like this, just because you can play the original, so I don't see the big deal. That's not constructive in my opinion. Like I said, it's hard to get a hold of the original unless you download it on some sort of abandonware site or something for free, which I'd be very careful doing. But Yeah, the fact that people are excited for the game and want it to do well and are criticizing it means that hopefully the feedback is heard by somebody. Now, only time will tell. I'm one to just kind of wait and see. Maybe more trailers in the near future. Maybe an update from the developers sometime soon will tell us a little bit more insight on how the development stage is actually going. Because I think now that people are assuming this might be an old build of a year ago, might sort of diminish the reaction to this. But at the same time, I wouldn't go on that news as though it's 100% true, because I really don't know. So at the end of the day, like I said, I think there are things that need improvement. I think there are things that look pretty decent. I think it's fair to say that it's not the worst looking thing in the world. It definitely doesn't look amazing. I definitely wouldn't want it to come out in the state that it's in this trailer and expect people to pay $60 for it. Because honestly, the the specs on Steam to play this game are a little steep, in my opinion. And if it's going to look like that, then I don't really understand why. I kind of wish they would have gone with a different engine. I think the RE engine would have worked really well for this, personally. Ironically, people saying they're copying Resident Evil, they should have used their engine, but the Konami and Capcom and all that, I'm not sure how that works. So I think Unreal Engine has its problems, but yeah, we'll just have to see and wait for more information before we really know what's going on and what state the game is actually in as we speak. And I hope my video wasn't too hard to get through and that you can see where I'm coming from on some of these points. I'm still a bit sick, so I'm kind of struggling talking, but I'm doing my best here. Wanted to get a video out about this as soon as I can. And yeah, I don't think I'm missing out on anything here. I've tried to approach this and explain my thoughts as best I can, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about the trailer in the comments below. What are your expectations of this game after seeing this trailer? Is this trailer really as bad as everyone is saying it is? Now, not saying it's good, but I think there are things that we can come to an agreement on that we may be overthinking. We need to put things in perspective and not be like, well, I didn't like the trailer, so it's completely screwed. The whole game is going to suck. I don't like to approach things that way. But at the same time, if that's how people feel, that's how they feel. I'm not going to tell them how to think. That's their thing, dude. So it's totally fine. I'm very tired of being like, well, man, all Silent Hill fans suck. I'm just kind of tired of that because I'm a Silent Hill fan and I'm trying to be balanced and open-minded about this as best I can. I don't like everyone overgeneralizing everyone's opinions right now on certain subjects in the gaming sphere. We need to do a lot better about that and have honest conversations about things like this. So tell me what you think in the comments below about this trailer, what you like, what you dislike, what you think may be the purpose of this. Like I said, is it just a showcase? Is it an old build? Does that excuse its condition and the way it's shown? Do you think it should have been shown at all if it's an old build? I want to hear your detailed, precise, honest point of views on this, and for everyone to just be nice to each other and be polite. Share what you have to say and what your concerns are and what you like, and we'll have a little conversation about it. And I'd just like to hear what people have to say about it. That'd be really cool. And if you enjoy my content, hit subscribe, like, comment, share, do all that fun stuff. I don't usually do videos like this. I usually play horror games and then share my opinions on them at the end of the videos and give them what I call my final judgment. So go check out my videos if that's what you are into. So I do like doing these videos from time to time. I did them, some of these videos like this for Silent Hill Ascension, which you can go watch for yourself and see what I have to say about that. And I like to do these more often when I can. I'm not very good at them. I think what I should have done, and I even recorded the trailer. I maybe should have just used the recording I had of the trailer to sift through, because something ain't working here with this. Anyways, yeah, here's hoping this goes a lot better in the future. I'm going to keep an eye on this and the development of this as best I can. Hopefully they give us more information soon. I think that's all I have to say about it. So thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.